So let's take it back to early 2020, when in quarantine I really had nothing to do except for just listening to Everywhere at the End of Time on loop and rotting. That is until I get a lone DM from a friend saying something along the lines of, "Hey man, I think you should check out Dog Ninja." And I was like, what? And they're like, it's called Dog Nigeria. It's really good. So then I went through that stage that every Dognilla fan goes through, which is named the This Actually Exists stage, where you try to scour the internet to prove that whoever recommended this to you is just tripping. Only to be shocked, terrified, but more importantly intrigued about how something so like this would be allowed to exist like it does today. It seems like the art and a little bit of the storyboarding had much room for improvement coming from an inexperienced author, but it definitely had a heart to it, and well, what it also had going for it was how casually hilarious the whole production was.
What the fuck?
With characters normally speaking in the modern slanted English of urban America that we don't normally see too often with animes. So when it's executed in this fashion, it results in something just so unique and really fucking funny at that. But besides that, the manga or comic features Max, who's, just a normal dude, except for the small fact that he's a hybrid of a human and a dog, and he seeks revenge on his father to one day rape him like he raped his mother. Yes, this is the plot. His dad sends assassins very frequently over his way, and in the most anime fashion they duel it out without any explanation for how their powers work, or why this guy could just stop time. But that's not really why you're there anyways. The real reason why you're there is because of the other side of the coin with this manga, where it portrays a deep and ingrained trauma within the black community. And while I myself haven't experienced that trauma, and I'm very grateful for that, the way it goes about showing this as something that always follows you throughout life is just so unique about Dognilla. Something or someone that seeps into every single facet of your existence is a dread that I think truly anyone can relate to, even if only a little bit. And that was the extent of Dog Nutella, for me at least, in early 2020. It had a tremendously unique form of comedy with random, sometimes confusing action scenes sprinkled in, and it also had this deeper essence to its story the farther you go in. That was it until basically when I decided to reread Dognamu and experience for the first time volumes 4 and 5. This is where the story truly meets its potential. The school shooting arc, in which that is literally the only thing I could describe it as, actually starts in the middle of volume 3. So let me just say spoilers for volumes 3, 4, and 5 here. It starts out with an all intents and purposes generic telling of one of these horrific happenings. A white boy who has been treated as subhuman by all of his classmates built the resolve to commit evil. And since he lives in this country, he has the access to the means necessary to carry out said evil. That's when he runs into Max, who stalls him for a bit. But realizing what was actually going down, Max finds that he couldn't give a single shit. Max found what he was doing was pathetic, but he couldn't bring himself to care because of his own personal experience with school kids in the past. In the moment, he was actually in the midst of running away from an assassin that his father sent after him. But throughout his fight, he gets entangled in this absolute atrocity that the boy created inside the school. Law enforcement pulls up to the scene, and the boy pins the crime on Max. Nobody questions it. They all start chanting, "Kill it." This all gets to Max. It was like something inside of him was ballooning on the verge of popping. And his homie Neo calms Max down and tells everyone the truth. The police won't take Neo's explanation though, so they continue to pursue them while the assassin is trying to kill Max and the school shooter is getting away. Eventually, this entangled mess of random scenarios colliding with each other results in this. The police reveals that he's a super omega racist evil villain with this panel, but then this whole roller coaster of non-stop stereotypes of evil takes a halt when Ukuru steps in. In a chapter fittingly titled Ukuru's Resolve, Ukuru, being the partner of the racist cop, decides to not stand for any more of it. He warns his partner to stop being a racist piece of shit and to open his eyes. Ukuru sees who the real obvious assailant is and sorts out everything. He arrests the school shooter, but Max and Neo escape and eventually the assassin too. In 𝓝𝓘𝓖𝓐, usually the main device for formally introducing the characters to us is very anime-esque backstories. And we've already gotten a lot for the main cast of characters, which mostly have to do with trauma, failed dreams, or the utter alienation they've internalized after being brutally discriminated against. But 𝓝𝓐𝓐's backstory is much less of his situation in his early household, and more of his situation when he first realized the tragedy hidden within his job. The manga flashes back and tells the story of 𝓝𝓐𝓐, who's a moralist, justice-driven new recruit sent off on one of his first assignments, which is to quell the situation and confirm reports of a naked man running around trying to stab people. He arrives at the scene and he sees pretty much what he was expecting, but what he didn't understand was the true nature of the situation. This was an execution, or from the perspective of this man, it was a suicide via police. He decides that to provide closure, he'd visit the household of the man he was forced to execute, and he's faced with distant, cold, fatherly eyes that just scream, "I don't care." Even to the extent where he seemed pleased with what happened. He showed up to the funeral where the only person who bothered to show up was the person that shot him. Though, through this and throughout the rest of his career, he found that there is no justice in a lot of the areas inside his job. But from seeing this and also separate instances of active corruption in his field, he doesn't submit. He decides that he'd change the system from the inside. Later, he'd visit the cell of the school shooter a lot to give him gifts and food sometimes. When questioned about why on earth he'd give up the time of day visiting that scumbag, he responded by telling a story about how the first time a remote tribe were faced with a white man, they thought he was a god, never seen that skin color before. But it was when they witnessed that white man taking a shit that they realized that he is just human. The next panel shows Kyle, or the school shooter, taking a shit on the toilet. 𝓝𝓐𝓐 is my favorite character in this manga, and that's only because of how every single other character culminates to his ideology. How Rex's over-the-top goals in getting revenge against his father was only a front he put up to others just to maybe scare off the assassins and intimidate his father. How Neo was practically manhandled into a life of crime when he wanted to be an artist, and how Kyle was relentlessly bullied his entire life. This discrimination, this unfairness, this horrible treatment could all be stopped by realizing that at the end of the day, the oppressed, the oppressor, the bully, the bullied, we all shit, and we all need toilet paper. It's this simple understanding that 𝓝𝓐𝓐 embodies. That's why he didn't align with the path his partner decided to take. Of course, these problems of discrimination, bullying, and school shootings require incredibly nuanced discussions with nuanced causes and nuanced solutions. This manga isn't even trying to go into all of that. It's just here to remind y'all of an important fact. Your cock is wide open. So as all of you just clenched your balls in real time, I just got finished ordering a bunch of Neo-sized bandages before you realize your lack of balls. At the end of the day, this manga is chock full of surface-level satirical and joke characters, but upon closer inspection, they have a beautiful three-dimensional depth to them. Us readers went through a lot of the same scenarios. We were originally drawn in by the memes probably, but along the way, this manga unexpectedly grabbed us at a visceral level and never let go. Nothing is worse than to finish a good shit and then reach over and find the toilet paper container empty. Even the most horrible human being on earth deserves to wipe his ass. Charles Bukowski. The genius of 𝓝𝓘𝓖𝓐 is that its themes should be obvious to us, but when conveyed to us from the perspective of these extreme characters, somehow it seems like a lot of these characters don't deserve toilet paper. And you can come to your own conclusions of whether they do or not, but I say everyone gets toilet paper. I love this manga. I really wish there were more volumes out there because it seems like it just keeps getting better and better. You can support the creator here. The author seems like a real cool dude. Yep, that's it for me. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. If not, a dislike and a comment. All feedback is helpful.